Hello, it's Brad Laurie or BlockchainBrad. Today I'm honoured to speak with two gentlemen I've known for some time, making waves right now in blockchain. We have Mo and Sandeep from Celer and Matic. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your collab today.
Thank you so much, Brad, for inviting us.
You're very welcome. And Sandeep,
yeah,
also.
Thanks, Brad. Thanks for inviting me here.
You're very welcome. Now, I know you're both very busy. Let's get stuck into the crux of why we're here, and that's to discuss the integration, the partnership. Now, for many people who don't know, perhaps, let's start off, Mo, with you, with a quick recap on what Celer's doing, specifically with regard to off-chain scaling and your unique position with state channels.
Yeah, of course. So for Celer, what we are building is a layer 2 scaling platform with a technology focused on generalized state channel. So generalized state channel is a piece of layer 2 scaling technology that enables instant interaction, free transaction, and also extremely low-cost micropayments on any kind of a blockchain. For now, we support Ethereum, we support Definity. Basically, we support two kinds of virtual machine constructs, like EVM and Watson. And of course, like we are a layer 2 platform that connecting to a bunch of different layer 1 blockchains, but also, of course, able to support sidechains as well, Matic networks.
Right, and that's where, sorry to interrupt, Mo, but that's where Sandeep does come in. Both of you gentlemen represent layer 2 solutions. Sandeep is an expert in that sidechain solution at layer 2 level. Sandeep, what are you about? Why do you represent something innovative, especially given that there's already a substantial number of layer 2 solutions already out there?
Yeah. So Matic Network is also a layer 2 scaling solution based on Plasma framework. So Matic Network sidechains are sidechains backed with the Plasma securities for assets, right? And so that provides almost like a Ethereum main chain level security to the asset transactions. And then it also supports a post chain, which supports a full EVM kind of abilities, which can support protocols and things built on EVM or Ethereum. So that's where we come in. And I just want to take a step back and say that primarily the off-chain scaling consists of three kind of solutions. Like one is the state channel, which Celer is all about. The second one is the side chains, which we come in, especially with the Plasma enabled side chains. And then there is a third way of doing things like TrueBit and some other upcoming approaches.
Yep. Right.
So we do represent different flavors of layer 2 scaling solutions.
Right, and Sandeep, you've made a really good point with regard to the term off-chain. Both you gentlemen represent this. Why is it so crucial that there's an off-chain element? Either of you gentlemen could answer it, I'm sure, because you both represent some type of layer 2 off-chain solution. But let's explore that term of off-chain and the value it brings to blockchain.
Yeah, of course. I think in general, what layer 2 is trying to bring a level of scalability based on certain assumptions. And that assumption is like a more optimistic assumption about the application participants. And, the layer 2 is always secure because we always have the base layer security when the collaboration, breaks, right? So if you are not collaborating, then you can always revert to the layer 1 for the slower path, but a fully secure path. So that's kind of like just of any layer 2 solutions, including, all the three categories that Sandeep just mentioned.
I see. Now, Sandeep, I wanted to ask you, given that you are so pro-Ethereum initially, because obviously you support the EVM, you certainly understand the functions and the dynamics of Ethereum right down to its code, but Mo's mentioned that he's agnostic in the sense that they've looked at Definity, they're looking at other blockchains. Are you also moving in that direction and taking an agnostic position in your layer 2 solution?
Sure. So layer 2 solutions, as Mo also mentioned, so they have much more freedom on the layer 2 to support multiple base chains, and Ethereum is our like sort of first love. I think it's the same situation for
that's right
also. So that's the first chain that we are scaling, and then since we are also like support EVM, so we can also support the other kind of layer 1s.
Makes a lot of sense. Now,
Yeah.
how did it go in New York for both of you? Obviously, consensus was a big deal for you, and we'll talk about that later. But I wanted to talk subsequent as well with regard to the hackathons, with regard to the ETH week that you had. How valuable was that interplay between Ethereum's devs and you guys?
Sandeep, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So I mean, I think we like Celer also. We have been supporting a lot of Ethereum hackathons, and these are the best places to get the developer talent and then expose them to the technology that we are building. And I mean that's these are like the core avenues where you get visible to the larger Ethereum developer community, and then probably if they like our solution, they may end up building some killer applications. That's what every project is looking for. So yeah,
Right.
it was very fruitful, I would say.
And Mo, what about you? How have you found all the interactions with Vitalik, his team, with Ethereum developers as well?
Oh yeah, so Ethereum New York and in general the New York Blockchain Week has been very fruitful for us. So first of all, like we got like we got two booths from Matic got like one booth and we got the one right next to it. So like it's very coincidental. Like we didn't even know before we actually arrived on site. Oh
Right.
hey, many of you are here. So yeah, it's like also a coincidence. So we actually so then we got talking about things. As you know, we share many common things and journeys. We both like one of the leading layer 2 scaling solution and platforms out there. So it's very nice to have some friends like around you. And
like I fondly call Celer and Matic as brother projects
right.
at times.
And I'm really glad we're speaking about this in a tech sense, because we want to make sure that these integrations, these partnerships are literally based on the value that you can bring to the ecosystem, not just solely those superficial partnerships we've tended to see where bring value to the token. So let's explore this a little bit more. Now, just finitely or fundamentally, we're seeing a state channel merge with sidechain, off-chain scalability capacity between the integration of both of you. But I want to bring it down now just quickly to discuss Binance, for example. Now, you both have a partnership, obviously, or an agreement because you've done an IEO. What's it been like, especially given the buzz in consensus? How was that experience to onboard, to engage with Binance, and then to experience the kind of hype that both of you went through, and now you're starting to continue through post-hype, post-consensus buzz? What was it experience like for you? It must have been quite surreal.
Well, I would say like, the experience is pretty good. And I think Binance, as I mentioned, has a very, very professional and a very talented team. And they do very rigorous, vetting of projects. And I'm sure some people have the same feeling there. And, the post-launch process, I think, post-launch, it's really no difference for us when we're like kind of considering we're still moving ahead to push all the technology, push out the product, and we are having, a mainnet launch or a mainnet alpha launch coming up pretty soon for, I guess, both of our teams. So, that's kind of my take on this. I don't think there's very much difference in terms of differences in hypes and stuff. Yeah, of course, like, based on different level of marketing exposures, there will be a concentrated time period of marketing exposure, but after that, it's still daily work and daily pushing out the marketings, pushing out the user acquisition, product marketing, growth, and all that stuff is on our roadmap.
Right. So back to the business of the tech. Now, Sandeep, I really wanted to ask you this question as well, given that you did have a recent IEO. The buzz in consensus was absolutely immense for Matic. What was that experience like? Literally within days, we saw some serious movement. A lot of buzz, a lot of the speculators loving what you were doing. Talk us through that, and having to deal with that aftermath as well. Now that you're back into the tech frame.
Yeah. I mean, it was really a great experience for us also. Especially the New York Blockchain Week attracted, I think who's who of blockchain space into New York in one small area. So everybody was there. And then, we also in one of the days, like I think on the second day, I was there, wearing a Matic t-shirt. And then, people were just coming across, speaking, what exactly is happening with Matic and now what we are doing and all that. And we, tried from our side to explain in layman terms what we are doing and stuff like that.
So the real value has been the attention that this platform's brought to you. Now, I want to make it clear to all the listeners, I am not in any way paid by Matic, nor Celer, nor certainly Binance to provide this information. But what is clear is that the IEO is not the startup. So, gentlemen, what do you say, when there's some confusion with regard to the IEO? What's your take on, as Mo's already intimated, the IEO is really just that offering, that start for that project. What are some of those misconceptions you find, and what do you think we need to send better to as a message to those listeners who really want to make sure that they are representing the projects, not necessarily the means in which you list?
Correct. So I think that IEO is more of a final milestone before going public, before going to the community. But before that, also, if you talk about Celer was already a very big project before going for the IEO. Also, they have a huge community, and then a really great respect in the market. And similarly for Matic also, we have a lot of respect from the Ethereum Foundation. We have worked on some other tools and all that. So we have been doing a lot of stuff already. The IEO is more of a gateway to go to public. And Binance, as Mo was also saying, that it's I always mention that working with Binance has been such a great experience. Like they are they're so professional in their approach, and they are the biggest platform, hands down,
right,
and 10 times bigger than any other platform that that would be there. So that has brought a lot of global attention to the project, and of course that translates into a lot of adoption and project related stuff also, where now projects want to build. So we were already going to a lot of projects to build and to explore building on Matic, but now there is a lot of pull based approaches to us also.
Sure.
That where,
and obviously that attention once again has really afforded you both a key platform globally to really build out and get attention from fundamentally those developers, those that can try to really allow for these ecosystems to grow to benefit for years to come, and for users most importantly. And I think it behooves us all to remove the narrative of perhaps shitcoin, as we've heard it, which has been brandished right across the altcoin community. And I even tweeted today, and I suggested we need to start using the term legit coin, because there literally are legit coins out there doing legit things. And I do stand by that. Now, with regard to the partnership, let's talk about that a moment. Now, it states in the advertisements, in the ads that have come through, that you're the world's first integration of two complementary off-chain scaling solutions. Is that accurate? Are you sure you're the first? And what does it mean actually to be that first mover?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, definitely. I think we are indeed the first two integrated solutions on the layer 2 thing. And our vision has always been that layer 2 has many technologies and many platforms, but this kind of layer 2 scaling ecosystem has to work together as a whole to kind of provide a coherent solution to the developers, right? So for sidechains and for state channels, we are picking at different kind of trade-off points and have different kind of suitable applications, right? So and by combining them, we kind of it's like merging pieces on a puzzle, right? So it's kind of like merging different pieces in a puzzle, and then we form a full picture. More concretely speaking, the Celer smart contract transactions are entirely free, especially for interactive applications. And this kind of a streaming-based micropayments is also entirely possible to support larger amount of applications. Now, from our perspective, where Matic can provide significant value is that we can open these state channels on the sidechain, or even across different kind of sidechains. So the channel opening cost can be very low, because it usually is the layer 1 on-chain transaction, but now it can be a layer 2 sidechain transaction. And it also increases and helps sidechains interoperability, because we can do this kind of instant cross sidechain transfer and transactions or interaction between users at really different sites. So
right.
this is something that we think that is very interesting. So
yeah. I mean, even like Mo explained it very nicely, and even I mean, the coming together of these two solutions opens up a lot of more use cases and more sort of decentralized processes for the projects, like video streaming is an example, right? So to give you a very layman kind of this thing, so imagine somebody builds a sort of a Netflix kind of application using, for example, Celer, where they are using a video streaming, and then they are using Celer Network at this. So if for every video user watches, let's say, for example, you have to open a separate state channel. So if you have to open it on Ethereum, every video before the video plays, every time you have to open one single, one separate sort of, for example, state channel, which can be costly. So, as Mo said, that if you open those sites, state channels on the side chain, it can be very, 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 very easy, right? And very low cost. So now imagine the kind of opportunities this stack, I call it a stack. So this stack provides you to the developer, and what kind of applications can be possible over that. So I'm really excited. Also, I think that a lot of applications which let's say start building on Matic, and then they do a lot of on-chain, sidechain transaction, but then some of the transactions they don't want to do on-chain, and then they want to take a sidechain approach. So I think in future applications who are building on Matic, they can further explore for some of their use cases to use Celer. So and then I'm pretty sure that will happen with the other way around also. So it's actually a lot of cross adoption that can happen.
And that's what's really interesting as well, Sandeep, because there is this cross collaboration between the two of you, where the interests from one, and what I'm hearing from both of you is the speed, the efficiency are two key assets that you both bring. Now, some of the literature and statements are things like smoother blockchain experiences for both of you, cost reductions, reduction of friction, smart contract improvements, interaction. So again, this cross chain capacity you're building in through this integration is only going to mean that a much more efficient approach to scaling, and also the use of blockchain more generally, especially when it comes to smart contracts. Now, what's happening with developers? How are you both sending this message out to let people know that you have integrated? And how easy are you making it for developers to use this integration?
Yeah, Sandeep, you want to take that?
Yeah. So I mean, if you see the announcement also, as you rightly mentioned, so it was not sort of a vanity sort of partnership. We actually talked about the deployment, which is actually there on the testnet, and people can explore Celer state channels.
Right. It makes you rare, Sandeep, because it was actually a real partnership.
Exactly. And if you read the announcement also, we said that developers can now use. So if there are developers watching the video, they actually want to use something, approach any one of us, either Celer team or us. We can actually help you to deploy and start using it today.
So how have you found that, Mo? Have you found that there's already developers coming on board trying to find out more of information?
Yeah. We have people in Discord starting to ask us about like information of the integration, and also like the SDK in general. I think for both of us, we are trying to like make the SDK extremely easy to use for the developers. And this collaboration happened like partly also because like we really sit next to each other. So I was really just there. With our engineer team, one member of our engineering team, and talking to Sandeep, talking to Anurag, and doing the integration live in East New York. So in a way, that is like our East New York project.
Right. Well, it's exciting to hear that hopefully we can see more fruitful integrations, not just of yourselves, gentlemen, but in the future for other blockchains to start to really value add as we build an ecosystem that's not in silos. Even when it comes down to blockchains, you're breaking this tradition down at that level. Now, some of the points of value I do want to discuss a bit further and clarify. Now, you explain that you are cross to side chain to root chain. What do these things mean in terms of these cross collaborations that we're alluding to? Let's be specific. To cross side and cross chain to root chain, what do they mean, Sandeep?
You mean can you repeat the part, the cross sidechain?
Yeah, so with regard to the capacity that you both can do in your integration specifically, the points of value is that you can go from cross side chain and also side chain to root chain. So do you want to talk us through that?
Yeah, so I think both of the networks support the root chain, that is the base chain, Ethereum to the side chain kind of integrations, and then cross side chain also. So more like gave a very good example that, if there are multiple side chains and multiple, for example, heterogeneous systems where the token swaps need to take place. Some use cases can use Celer Network, channels where these cross chain swaps can happen. So that is something is possible now using Celer this thing. And then on the Matic side chains parts, you like if you want to if somebody is using state channels and they want some kind of settlements to be happened on the main chain, which is also a very requirement, so they can use the main chain. So that's why cross linking of the products is like very, I think that it's very useful for a lot of kind of developments.
Right. Now, Mo, you talked about Divinity before. Can you talk us through the value in trying to explore these other layer 1 solutions? And obviously there's even narratives out there of layer 0 solutions that don't lie beneath them. Right. But how is the discussions going with, subsequent blockchains? The pipeline must be quite extensive in all the interest you've garnered for those who want to work with you.
Yeah. So I think one good thing about so first of all, we hold the blockchain agnostic principle, because like layer 2 in the end will be an independent ecosystem, which is also yes, we our layer 2 solutions are going to be empowering like all the solutions, but we are kind of a separate. We have the hardware layer, which is kind of like the blockchain, and then we are kind of on this operating system layer, right? So as you know, Windows can run on IBM machine, can run on HP machine, can this kind of concept. Now in terms of the integration and pipelines, the good thing is that it seems that from the virtual machine architecture front, people are starting to kind of merge into different virtual machine buckets, right? So Ethereum has EVM, and EOS and Divinity is all more along the WebAssembly line, and that's like roughly the two mainstream like a virtual machine construct there, right? And then you have some other construct like a RISC-V and stuff like that. For us, the integration is relatively simple because these are the major virtual machine construct, even though there are tens or 20 blockchains. But if we're talking about actual virtual machine instruction side, they're relatively limited. So it's pretty
Sure. And for all the listeners, I do apologize for some of the audio problems we are having, but certainly what you've clarified there, Mo, is that you are looking at the value of virtual machines and the very best of them that are offered in the blockchain space right now. Now, that affords us, a bit of a discussion and some leeway with regard to Binance, because one of the things you did make clear in one of your AMAs, Mo, was that Binance is not representative of a virtual machine in any case, in any way. And in fact, if anything, by having this support from Binance for the attention factor, for the exchange factor, no question that they're focused on supporting you as a startup. And if your direction is going in towards supporting Ethereum, for example, and the likes of WebAssemblies, surely there is not this competition between Binance and Ethereum. It doesn't make sense. Is that fair to say?
I think this is probably a better question for Binance.
Sure. But I think you can see the point, though, is that by supporting you, that you're directly supporting Ethereum.
Right. So I think for now, my understanding is that Binance used Tendermint as attaching a virtual machine on a consensus layer is definitely possible. Let's say one day Binance starts to look into the smart contract construct, they can 100% do that. It's not like fundamentally limited there.
Right, and they might do that one day. But right now, the reality is that you're very much focused in what exists now, which is the EVM and the WebAssembly.
Yeah.
Right. I'm glad we clarified.
And for layer 2 solutions, actually, it doesn't, it doesn't matter which which kind of layer one solutions, ultimately win in the overall game. If let's say Binance chain picks up a lot of adoption, and some other blockchains, like whichever blockchain pick up adoption, of course layer two solutions can quickly, for like us and Celer, can build compatibilities,
right.
that. But yeah, as I told you, that Ethereum is the first love. So of course Ethereum is the first base chain.
Mm-hmm. And you've made it really clear, Sandeep, and I
more
appreciate
evolved
that.
future, I think it should be a, yeah, and there is a situation that there can be an interoperability of assets from multiple chains. So who knows, like these what kind of futures this kind of use cases these integrations will provide. So for layer two, for us it's not like a hard bound choice on any particular thing. But having said that, we both
Sure.
are
Now,
focusing
gentlemen,
on the biggest layer of right now.
absolutely, Sandeep, and I'm sorry for interrupting. Now, obviously, there's been a lot of discussion recently of market movement. So roll up your sleeves. I am going to ask you this. Now, there has been a real pump in terms of price. Now, I know neither of you like to talk about it because you represent the tech, you represent teams that are serious. But there's no question that we can't circumvent the reality that you both had a substantial price rise, especially Matic. It was quite crazy what we saw. Now, that's not something that's unusual in crypto. We are in a speculative market as much as we are building this innovative tech. But once again, Sandeep, how do you deal with that? Because there's a lot of criticism, there's a lot of constructive feedback as well about these kinds of things that happen. But fundamentally, what's your take on the token, how that operates to really service the longitudinal value of Matic? And I'm sure Celer and Mo, you could jump in as well. But the reality is it did happen, so we can't ignore that it didn't.
But I think, since my connection has been very bad, that's why I've been also like participating a bit less in the interview. So because of my connection, and just now I couldn't get the question that you were asking. So you said that what is the value of the token? What is the value of the token? Did you say,
well,
like how the?
Sure, I'll just repeat it for you. And Mo, if the connection cuts out, perhaps you could help Sandeep out. But the question was really just about addressing the reality of the market movement recently, especially in light of Matic. It was a really substantial increase in the token value itself. And the reality is we're in a speculative market right now, Sandeep. And I wanted to make sure that we addressed it. I wanted to talk about this in the context of liquidity support, and the fact that you're building tech, but there is this token attachment to your whole ecosystem. As Mo would argue also, he has a token for his ecosystem. What's it like when you see this kind of fluctuation in the value of the token as you're literally trying to build out something that represents, long-term value?
Yep. So I think what I think is that in the early phases of the project, where the price or the project is actually discovering its base value, this kind of movements are possible, and then public or the retail buyers attribute the price basis a lot of things that have happened for the project. So for Matic, the thing is that Matic has, maybe the fact is that, we've been building for quite a long time, 1.5 years. So, when it came out, there was, certainly there was a lot of attention in the market. But apart from that, as Mo also mentioned, early on, that, it doesn't change what we do day by day. Our hard work, and then, midnight oil burning stays just the same. We still are, churning out the code every day, and then, talking about adoption, talking to the teams who can actually build, and supporting them.
I think it's a very safe answer, Sandeep, and I think you've made it very clear that you're
like today also, today morning also, I slept at 5:30 a.m. in the morning and wake up at 10 again. And again, I'm pretty sure that it's the same case with Mo also. So
I do have a lot of respect for the hours that both of you gentlemen are pulling right now. It's a lot of work, I know, to lead these out. But Mo, you've been in the game sometime. You've seen the kind of craziness we see in crypto more generally. But what's the imperative of liquidity support in the context of making sure that you always have some sort of support as you build this tokenomic model to correlate with the tech that you're literally building for the future? Can you see the point I'm making? Is that how imperative is liquidity and making sure that there is acknowledgement of this very nascent technological innovation that has an attachment to a token. Have you found that challenging, given the kind of flux you've seen in your own project?
I don't think I quite understand the question.
Okay, well, I'll try and explain it better. So obviously with every project, there is a degree of liquidity support imperative. So, you know, to sustain the value, to sustain project success, often we hear of discussions about liquidity support. It happens in Wall Street, it happens everywhere. Now, the question I'm asking you is, what's your position, you know, more generally on the imperatives of liquidity support? How important has that been in, especially working with Binance, for example? All of the exchanges, no doubt, are very much aware of that imperative. Would you argue that a token needs to make sure that they have some degree of liquidity support to be able to sustain things like bear markets, you know, or has it, again, that correlation between token and startup? It's a tough thing to ask. It's certainly even tougher to answer. But what's your position on liquidity more generally when we're talking about token to startup?
I still don't think I get the question actually.
Okay.
What do you mean by liquidity? I mean, so you know, I think liquidity is not any of the project's responsibility. It's the exchanges. You know, it's really the exchanges who are providing this.
Right, and that's where I was alluding to, Mo. So perhaps I wasn't clear. So obviously engaging in the kinds of exchanges like Binance, for example, or even others, it doesn't really matter. They must ensure there is liquidity support. So what's your position on this, particularly because you've worked with Binance, arguably one of the strongest with regard to that kind of support with the kind of volume that they bring to the marketplace? Would you argue that there needs to be strong structures in place to maintain that correlation, to maintain the success and the attention of that token as you're building out the tech revolution, as you're building out the technological innovations? Because there have been teams that haven't done that, haven't had the fortune of working with Binance, for example, and their token has really suffered, and they might have amazing tech. So what's your position on the imperative, like, once again, of liquidity support, not necessarily by Celer, but just more generally from exchanges?
Yeah, I think see, let me take that.
Just lost you, Sandeep.
I think I lost. Yeah, I think I lost.
You're back now.
Yeah. So I was saying that, you know, the best thing about being on Binance is that there is, you know, it has the largest amount of user base in the crypto industry. Mm-hmm. So, you know, liquidity is generally not a problem for any project once you are there on Binance. So, right. You know, for us, it's really, you know, for projects like us who are on Binance and then the Binance itself, I think we are very much, you know, immune to that kind of problem that may be there for some other exchanges. You know?
Got it.
So for us, it's actually not a problem.
Right. Now let's talk about some of the more interesting things, Mo, and that's use case. Some of the things that you've explained already very loosely are micropayments, but there's also other use cases for both you gentlemen with regard to the layer 2. One of them, as Sandeep has mentioned, is streaming and data improvements, but also there's gaming. I really want to talk about that as a use case with regard to NFTs. Can you talk us through some of the proofs you've seen already and the potentials of any applications that can really benefit from this kind of change that this integration brings, so that we can see more applications being more performant, more efficient, more successful in their operations just because they utilize you two together?
Yeah, I mean, well, I will let Sandeep take the NFT part first. Yeah. I'll talk about the other aspects.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, So I mean, see, NFTs are assets lying on the main chain. So if there are, you know, asset transfers required and all that stuff, so in many of the use cases, users will be, you know, maybe, you know, more sure about doing them on some on-chain. Maybe it's a side chain or the main chain and all. But then there are a lot of use cases where there are a large number of you know, user interactions required, and I think there, you know, solutions like Celer you know, come into place. So that's why I was saying that, you know, to build the kind of AAA grade games, mm-hmm. you know, if some application wants to build a real decentralized blockchain based game, the combination of these two solutions can be a real killer one.
And that's exciting, Sandeep, because we're in that age now of gaming. Gaming's very...
That's an interesting question, and I would like to hear more also on the same.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I think Sandeep gave a very, very good overall overview of the possibility of things that we can do. And just to give a very concrete example, right? So if you have like a AAA game, which is like an MMORPG game on blockchain, entirely decentralized. So you can have your sword, you can have your treasure, you can have your armor all stored on a sidechain, right? So cheaply.
Right.
And you can have all these informations of your characters, like matrix and all that stuff.
Right.
But now, the cool thing about the gaming is that it always have human-to-human interaction. You always have this competition that is involved in the process, right? So whenever this kind of competition or high-frequency interaction start to happen, let's say two guys meet, they're fighting with each other, and the winner will take the losers assets or equipments and stuff like that. So this kind of thing can happen through Celer Network in an extremely interactive way, as if there's no blockchain.
Right.
So that's kind of where we see this direction can go.
And what about permanent data solutions as well, Mo, with regard to having those solutions to make sure that you can have that more efficient off-chain data storage solution built in, and also micropayments? You're an expert with that. We've always talked about the value of Celer with regard to the fluidity of microtransactions because of the speed, but they seem to be great use cases as well, both data and micropayments.
Okay. I'll let Sandeep take the data question, I guess. In general, I think data, the permanent large bulk data storage is not any of our concern, I would say. Okay. If you're talking about very large bulk data transfer and bulk data storage, that is more towards a decentralized file system. What we are focusing on still is the decentralized execution, processing, these kind of aspects. So I'm sure.
Correct. So even in our case also, so for example, IPFS as a data storage solution, right? So Ethereum supports them out of the box, and by that extension, Matic chains side chains can also a version of IFS, IFS and all that. And again, you have to see these stacks. So what we are building is an infrastructure layers, right? So, if you see it in a longer horizon evolving, so these 2-3 things are kind of stacks, right? So you have, side chains for as Mo gave a very concrete example of having some asset stored and all that. Then you have the sort of, state channels like a Celer Network, where you have these, millions of these interactions happening between, players and, like MMORPG, and players actually interacting and playing with each other. And then from there, some part of their data is being stored in some of these decentralized storages. Right. So we think in terms of Matic, overall is that it will more be a stack play in future. You will have these integrated stacks where you have something for on-chain transactions, then for something for state channels, and then something for storage, something for identity. Right. And in future, 2-3 years from here, the developers will have these entire stacks. Which today also, if you go to the development field, you will find stacks like Mean Stack, Lamp Stack, which have been crazy popular stacks to build. Lamp Stack has been the most popular to build the application or websites based on PHP, and now these days the Mean Stack is the more powerful one, right? So MongoDB, AngularJS, and Node.js and stuff like that. So we think in future there will be stacks like this. And I'm pretty sure that both of our projects are exploring to provide end-to-end stacks to the developers, where they don't have to go for look for solutions outside. They have
and it certainly fits in with Mo's own design and his teams, because if you go and explore the nature of Celer, there's literally lots of parts of that stack, and built in there's stacks upon stacks. So it's interesting you say that. Now, with regard to roadmap, I wanted to ask you firstly, you're quite far ahead with regard to the developments, with regard to the planning. You started earlier than Matic in terms of unfurling in the marketplace at the very least. So where are you at with regard to your positioning? And then we'll move across to Sandeep and find out where he's at.
Right. So, I think just like first a minor correction. I don't think we actually started earlier than Matic.
Okay.
Probably started later than Matic. If that probably
okay. That's a good correction to make, because there's a misnomer out there. Because you listed first, you started earlier. So I do apologize for that.
No worries. But like layer 2 space are all very new. We're not like 2-3 years project. We're like all in the 1 year, 1.5 year range.
Right.
But I think for us, we're pretty on track on the roadmap, and our immediate goal is to roll out the alpha mainnet launch. And the principle we're holding here is we want something that maybe looks small, but is complete, right? So it's not going to be something that is we launched, but there's like nothing to build, nothing to use. When we launch this, on mainnet, hopefully around end of June. What we are trying to push for is not only the underlying infrastructure, but also a user-facing application, and at the same time a developer framework, right? So it's kind of like a developer middleware. Even it's even building on top of the
and clearly that June mainnet release, that really implies that the native token has that true fundamental use case. You're on your own at that point, and Celer's truly functional. Now, Sandeep, my apologies once again, because obviously you've been building for some time, not as well known as Celer perhaps, but certainly in the background you've been building, and we've known each other for a very long time. How's your roadmap going? What's your projections, and how does it correlate also with Mo and Celer, given that they are moving to mainnet so quickly?
Correct. So, for us also, as you said, that we've been developing for a long time. And then since we are we have been based out of India. So for us, it took a lot of time to actually come out in public and, be well known like we are today. So that has been going for quite a long time. And then, we are also at a very advanced stage with our tech development. And, as you're seeing that, most of the projects, most of the good project or legit coin projects that you said, they will be delivering their promises. Matic would be delivering, Celer will be delivering, and many other good projects which has solid teams who are committed to their goal. They will be delivering their mainnets during the whole year. So I think that now the space is going to be very exciting. So till now, in the last 2 years, we have seen these protocol wars, right? Everybody is this protocol, that protocol. I think that time will slowly start getting over, and that is like I call it the beginning of the end for the protocol wars. And now we are approaching the the beginnings of the app wars, where people or developers will be building these killer apps. Some of them, I think that early or late this year or early next year, there will be some killer user apps who will be going
viral
for mass adoption,
right?
And going viral. And we will really see the potential of blockchain industry getting delivered to them.
So, gentlemen, do you think, given that the layer 1 and 2 solutions are now relatively saturated? Because I read a comment from Mo recently, and he argued very clearly that there is not this saturation effect yet. We're still very early in the day. But given what you're saying, Sandeep, and we're moving towards an era of dApps or decentralized applications, have we got enough now? Do we have enough of the layer 1 and 2 solutions, especially in your case, where we have the infrastructural capacity, the potential? Don't we need to really just tweak these, make these excellent, as you're both doing, so that there is the capacity to now get real with the next level, and that's the applications that can use them? Or is there space for more competitors?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Mo, if you want to, start, then I can chip in later on.
Yeah, I think there are. First of all, there are still a lot of interesting, questions and challenges that need to be solved even on layer 1, right? So it's not to say that it's a done deal. I think we are we're extremely far from like that saturation. Just referring to the sentence that you quoted, Brad, I was referring to not the technology aspect. I was referring to the developer ecosystem or developer community, right? So it's not. What I was referring to is that as a whole developer community. It's not like, the developer community is already saturated. Now it's time to fight for developers. It's far, far from that.
Right.
It's still in the growth stage of the developer community.
Got it.
Completely agree. So, blockchain developer community is not even like, I think, 1% of the overall, the developer community worldwide. Even it will be not like 1.1 to 0.5%, of that. So it's yet to explode. So, I completely subscribe to the Mo statement. And in terms of the saturation that, Mo has said that, there are still a lot of interesting problems to be solved. So I also think the same, but I'm saying that my point was that, these newer and newer teams coming out with, some different kind of white papers and protocols and tokens, that I think will not be that aggressive that we have seen in the last 1 or 2 years. It will be like, there will be few here and there, very good projects keep on coming, but overall there is already a good, population of the projects which are working on various different kind of.
It's a very good point, Sandeep.
Yeah.
So you're talking about quality over quantity, and that's exciting. And Mo, what does it mean for both of you to be in this Asian belt, this Asian region? Because with Sandeep and he leading out Matic, it's a potentially the largest community he could build in India for any blockchain. This is potentially. You yourself are leading out a very substantial community in your region. How important is it to have these populate, these kinds of developers and user bases in these regions where blockchain's really starting to flourish?
Yeah. I mean, I think that right now the situation is that a lot of the developers are looking at the technology, very serious ones, not only developers, but also like companies, people start to understand blockchain. Over the last 2 years, I would say like most of the developer either heard about blockchain or tried out blockchain themselves. But let me ask this question, like, this is a question that we probably are all wondering, why they are not moving to blockchain yet, right? So the answer is very simple. Because there is no way to make a sustainable profit when they're building on blockchain technologies, right? So now, what I think is that we can ignite the fire there in the sense that we can enable, because of the scalability improvement we bring, we can actually enable something that is bringing sustainable value for the developers, and of course, in turn, the developers build product will also, bring benefit for the broader audiences, the mass adoptions, right? So I think we are like at that point. How long that we're going to kind of cross the chasm? I think maybe by the end of this year, I hold the same prediction with
fingers crossed.
Like this year or early next year, we'll hopefully start to see some like very solid applications start to emerge. And you can already see some very interesting thing popping up in the decentralized finance area. And I'm sure from the more user-facing front.
Right. And what about you, Sandeep? What's your viewpoint with regard to the region, the potential of this as we move into and transition into more usership, more use case?
Yeah, I mean, Asia, population-wise, also it's like it's like the biggest concentration of people, and then also the talent also. So specifically talking about India has a large population of developers. I at times joke that the population of the developers in India is more than the population of many countries. So
certainly my country.
So your country is very small in that way.
Yeah, we don't have a lot, like 25 million, something like that. Not a lot.
Yeah, in 2-3 cities, I think the developers will cross that, mark. So, right. But yeah, I'm saying that, this is a huge talent pool, as well as, these economies are also ripe for, disruption via a lot of measures. Although the governments in these countries are resisting the change. But the more pragmatic governments like Japan and Singapore, they have already adopted that, and they are leading this charge. And I think slowly and steadily, the space is going to take over everything, right?
Absolutely, I totally agree, and it is great to see more of this regulatory support from governments, like you said. Right now, especially Singapore and Japan are really taking the front lead on this change and transition of support. I'd like to thank both of you sincerely, because the idea of this was to show not just the integration potential, but the fact that you are tech-centric. You're literally trying to build out scaling solutions at the layer 2 level to be real and applicable for developers, particularly so we can see pragmatic transition. Like Mo said, so that it can be profitable at some point. It can be of value for developers to make that switch into blockchain. Both of you articulated this very well today, and I thank you sincerely for your time. Mo, is there anything you'd like to say to the audience to finish off this interview, and obviously Sandeep as well, on behalf of Celer and Matic?
Yeah, so I would say that look out for the layer 2 technology. I think layer 2 technology will bring real transformative changes to the user space and also for the developer ecosystem. So if you're interested and want to know more, join our Telegram group or subscribe to our newsletters. We'll update you once we have any kind of good progress in news, basically.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And Sandeep,
I will also add with the similar kind of note. So I would say that the one important prediction out of this interview is that late this year or early next year there will be some killer applications. So I want to give this message to the developers that who knows, you are the next one. Like, you are the one who actually ends up building that killer application, right? So and what better to start with this Celer plus Matic stack. So reach out to us and start building, and who knows, you are the first mass adopted application in this space.
Absolutely. So for all those people who are developers out there, the gauntlet has been thrown down, whether you're from the Ethereum camp, whether from the Matic or the Celer. Quite literally, it's all about that integration, lighting up the combinations, the connections, the potential of collaborations on the blockchain. These guys have shown that it is possible at a layer 2 solution to collaborate together. They were at New York together, they got talking, and now they're making things work. So if you'd like to know more about Matic or about Celer, make sure you look at the links below. They will be there for you. Also reach out to each of the teams if you'd like to know more. This was a free interview. I would like to reiterate that again. And it was all about trying to provide more education on the blockchain. It's BlockchainBrad signing off. Thank you very much for your time. And thank you, gentlemen, very much for making time in your busy schedules today.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Brad. And I apologize for my bad connection today. So yeah, hopefully I was able to make some points.
No problem. It was great to talk to you both, and hopefully, guys, we'll catch up again soon to learn more about what you're doing, because you're always so busy. I've got to make sure I can get that call and get that chance to catch up.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks. Thank you so much.